Hi, everyone. Welcome. If you're I guess the front of the room is pretty full, so we are good. You heard about it earlier this morning, but speaker evaluations are in the mobile app and if you go through the website. If you go to each of the sessions, you can click on it. And I don't know if you heard earlier, but for every evaluation, $1 is going to the Cleveland Food Bank, which really excited me to hear that. So their presentations are available when it's available in the mobile app under the Agenda tab. Wi-Fi the network is CM World and the password is orange, all lowercase 21. And this analytics and data track is sponsored by PathFactory. PathFactory's intelligent content platform empowers B2B marketers and sales teams to drive revenue by accelerating buyer and customer journeys through scalable, omni-channel content engagement. PathFactory's proprietary content intelligence helps marketers understand content performance and quality and serve the right content to the right person at the right time. So I'd like to welcome Brian Piper to the stage. He's the Director of Content Strategy and Assessment at the University of Rochester's Department of Communications. He's been doing SEO and web content since 1996, has created online training programs for Xerox, Carestream, Kodak, and Volvo, among many others, and has spent the last 7 years focusing on data analytics, digital marketing, and content strategy. Without further ado, welcome Brian to the stage where he'll help you avoid fatal mistakes by using data to drive your website redesign. Thanks, Brian.
Thank you. Well, thank you everybody for coming. It's so great to see actual faces and not just be talking to my webcam in my bedroom. I'm thrilled to be back at Content Marketing World. As Kathy said, my name is Brian Piper. I'm the Director of Content Strategy and Assessment at the University of Rochester. And today I'm going to be talking about using data to optimize your website, particularly during a redesign. But as we all know, the beautiful thing about websites is that we don't have to wait for a redesign to optimize our website and optimize our performance. You can use these audits and these steps that I'm going to go through today at any point on your website to make sure that your site is reaching its full potential. If you want to get the slides from today, you can download them at getmyslides.info. I also have some templates that I'm going to be talking about. You can grab those there as well. So as Kathy said, I've been optimizing websites since the 1990s. This is the first site that I worked on. A little different than the sites you see today. Let's talk a little bit about data in the 1990s. So in the 1990s, data was the landscape of nerds, and I know because I am one. So it was very difficult to get information about your website at that time. We had, down at the bottom, you can see our hit counter on our homepage. So that's how we tracked how many people were coming to visit our website. Urchin was the tool of choice, and it was very difficult to get usable insights out of Urchin. And SEO was something that very few developers knew anything about, much less any business owners. So in the 2000s, things got a little bit better. Google bought Urchin and put out Google Analytics. Now we could actually start getting some insights about the performance of our content on our websites. And SEO became a thing. We even offered web positioning services as part of our package. We also had a spinning logo and a flashing new banner and a guest list. So things have changed a little bit since then. Back in the 2000s, you could go to conferences and actually find some sessions about data. And there were actually a couple of people in the room at those sessions. Since 2010, data has gotten cool, right? Hey there. I'm data. I know things about you. I know what you watch. I know what you listen to. I know what you buy and what you eat. I know where you spend your time online, what content you consume, and I'm going to give you more of that content. How many people in here right now are tracking your steps, your fitness, your food on your phone using data, right? We use data to inform a lot of decisions that we make. It makes our lives much easier. Why wouldn't you use data to inform the decisions you're going to make about the largest window to the world that you have, your website? So I've got a short video that I'm going to play about a friend of mine who didn't use his data, and it was almost very disastrous, right? He had an incident where he didn't look at the data before he jumped in, so to speak. So he happened to be skydiving. And he didn't realize that the high-performance parachute that he was using, which was much faster than the parachute he was used to, was getting very close to the activation speed for a safety device that he had that will automatically open your parachute if you're still falling a certain speed at a certain altitude. Very handy if you're at 1,000 feet and you get knocked out or you forget how high you are. Not so good at 300 feet if you already have a parachute over your head. So let's take a look at what happens.
I'm okay.
So obviously, if you don't look at your data before you do a website redesign, no one's going to potentially die or end up in a tree. But you could end up losing thousands of visitors to your website. You could end up with a new site that looks better than your old site, but doesn't do a better job of getting your users the content that they want. You could end up removing high-performing pages or potentially high-performing pages that could drive lots more users to your site and turn into customers. So the problem is, if you own a website, manage one, write content for one, at some point that site is going to need a redesign, right? Business to Community says every 1.5 to 2.5 years your site's going to need a redesign. So if you do the redesign without looking at the data that I'm going to talk about today, it could be a disaster. So the way to address this problem is by doing 5 audits, right? There are 4 core audits: analytics, performance, information architecture, and search. And then the 5th audit, which I call the encompassing audit, is the strategic audit. This will allow you to make data-driven decisions about your site performance, content, layout, infrastructure. So let's talk about these audits. The first audit we're going to talk about is the analytics audit because it's the first one that you should do. The analytics audit is going to tell you 2 very important things. Do you have the right accounts on your site, right? Google Analytics, Google Tag Manager, and Google Search Console as a minimum. And are those sites set up properly? Do you have the right views and properties? Are you tracking the right events and goals? And then if they already are set up properly, you can get all sorts of other information that can help with your decision making. You can find out how far down users are scrolling in your site, what pages are your main entry and exit pages. You can find out what users are searching on once they come to your website. You can also find out what external links that they're clicking on from your site and what documents they're downloading. So then once you know how the analytics are set up, then you can actually start getting the data. So you're going to want to get your top performing pages by page views. You're going to want to get your top organic pages. You're going to want to get the pages that are converting and meeting those goals and event needs. And then you're also going to want to put in any pages that are already ranking. Now we're going to talk about the performance audit. So you know what content people are looking at on your website. The performance audit is going to tell you how your site is actually functioning for your users and for the search engines. So in May of 2020, Google announced that in 2021 they were going to release the page experience update. So the page experience update is entirely focused around performance. So the performance of your website will directly impact your search rankings. So there are several different things that are included in the page experience update, several of which Google has already been tracking, right? Is your site mobile friendly? Does it work well on mobile devices? Does the navigation function? Is it secure? Does it have a HTTPS, SSL certificate? No pop-ups, right? Intrusive interstitials, pop-up ads. And then safe browsing. There's no malware or phishing attacks from your site. So these were things that Google was already tracking, but the things they announced, the new things, were the Core Web Vitals. So you may have heard about this because a lot of people are panicking about this, right? The Core Web Vitals include LCP, FID, and CLS, right? So the LCP is just the largest contentful paint, how long it takes for the first item to load on a page. The FID is first input delay, or how long it takes after a user clicks on something until your site responds. And then the CLS is the cumulative layout shift, so how much a site moves around as it's loading. So these are things that all developers should be doing for websites anyway, because we want our sites to be a good user experience. We want them to function well. Google is just giving us some added incentive to do that. But they're also giving us some great tools to help with that, right? You can go to Google PageSpeed Insights, put in a URL, and it will tell you step by step what things you can improve in your code, what your developers can work on to make your site function better. The next thing we're going to talk about is your actual site content, how it's currently organized and arranged. And that's the information architecture audit. So there's lots of ways to do an information architecture audit. There are software tools out there that can automate it for you. They'll crawl your site. They'll generate force-directed diagrams like this or tree diagrams. Then once you have all that information, then you can start actually looking at how your content is organized. Look for your largest clusters of content. Look to see how many layers deep your site currently is, and see if your current navigation allows the users to get to all that content easily. Another thing that the information architecture audit will reveal is the current flow of your traffic. So Google Analytics has this. It's a user behavior diagram, and it'll show you what pages users are going to and where they're coming from. There are also software tools out there that will do screen recordings of users as they're navigating your site online. It'll generate heat maps so that you can see overlays of where people are spending their time, what navigation items they're clicking on. And then we're getting to the last core audit, which is my favorite audit, the search audit. So the search audit will tell you what keywords people are currently using to get to your site. And you also know from analytics, hopefully, what terms users are searching on once they get into your site. The search audit will also tell you what keywords your content is currently ranking for in Google. There are lots of software tools out there that can generate this sort of audit. This is an audit from SEMrush that shows you all the keywords that your content is ranking for in the top 100 positions on the search engines. It shows you what position you're currently ranking for, shows you what the volume is, how many people are searching on that term every month. And then it even shows you how much traffic your pages are currently getting from that search term. So this is critical information to have before you start removing content from your site or when you're trying to figure out what content you need to optimize on your site. Then we get to the encompassing audit, the strategic audit. This is when you meet with your stakeholders, you get them to clearly outline their goals, their business goals, as well as what purpose they need the website to serve. This is critical information to have so that you can make sure that in the redesign, you set up your analytics to track against the key performance indicators that will let them see that all of their goals are being met. You want to set up events and goals within the site that will show that you're meeting all of their needs. This is also when you walk through the design process with them. You show them the data that you're going to be using to inform the decisions. This is when you get their buy-in and get them on board. So that when you get to the design process later, and they're like, where's my spinning logo? You can say, remember that performance audit we did that showed that the spinning logo really slows down the site? So now you have the complete picture once you've added in the bullseye of the website optimization model, which is your users. Right? Just like Jill was saying this morning, the most important thing is to know who you're talking to. You need to know your customer, whether you do that by generating personas or just looking at demographic information. You need to know the pain points of the people who are going to be consuming your content so that you know what questions they're asking so that you can be the one to give them the answers. So once you have all of this information, now you can start creating your site, doing your redesign, making the decisions. You know what content your users are looking for from your search and your analytics audit. You know that you want the structure of your website to be highly performing and from your performance audit. And then you know how you're going to start rearranging your content from the information architecture audit. all of which will allow your users to help you reach your strategic goals. So that's really, the best part, the whole thing, right? After that, it's just the easy work of actually doing the redesign. Kind of joking, but kind of not, because once you have all the data, it makes your decisions much easier to make, right? The first thing you need to do is come up with your new navigation structure. Now, I have a worksheet that you can download that makes the process much easier. You just put in your top 25 performing pages. You put in your top 25 organic pages. You put in your top converting pages, your high search volume pages, and then I like to include the current navigation for the site as well. Then you start marrying all those items together because you're going to have a lot of crossover in there, right? Hopefully your top organic pages are also some of your high search volume pages. So then you're going to combine that list down. Then you're going to fill in all the data holes. So primarily that usually consists of going to all your navigation landing pages and putting in the organic traffic, the total page views for those pages. So now you can really start making those decisions. You're going to have all the pages that your users are interested in, all the content that they're currently consuming, and all the content that's currently converting users to meet your goals. So this is the picture and the data that you need to have in your head while you're making those decisions about your website, while you're coming up with a new navigation structure. And the key is to focus on your users. If your users are a very segmented population, you have very specific user groups, you'll probably want to separate your navigation out by your user groups. There's lots of different ways to do that. You want to structure your data within your navigation so it leads the users down a path to goal completion. Once your stakeholders have approved your new navigation, then you need to start figuring out how you're going to migrate your existing content into your new structure. Right? And I have another worksheet for that. This one, you just put in the first column, you put your top level of navigation. In the second column, you put your next level of navigation. And then you go across and you just map what content you're taking from your old site and where you're putting that into the new site. Sometimes it's an entire page. Sometimes it's just a piece of content from one page. You get all that mapped over, and you can use your information architecture audit to just check off as you're going down that tree map to make sure that you're getting all your content moved over. If there's old content that needs to be removed or archived, that's when you flag that as content to take off your site. There's also a column in here for keywords. Every one of your landing pages for your navigation should be focused on particular keywords for your audience. Those keywords that you're optimizing that page for feed your URL creation. Your URL should include those keywords if possible. Your page titles should include those keywords if it fits and makes sense, obviously, which it should, because that's going to be the topic of that page. It's also going to lead into your image names on your page, your alt tags, right? Your alt tags are primarily for accessibility. We know that. But if you can get your keywords in your alt tags, then that will help your images come up in Google image search. And then every one of these pages should also have a call to action. Each one of these pages should lead the user somewhere, whether it's to consume the next piece of content or whether it's to take some action to complete a goal or event. That call to action is going to drive your meta description. So when your user finds that page on the search in Google, the meta description tells them what content is going to live on that page. Your keyword is in that meta description, and it tells them what action you expect them to take. It doesn't have to be, completely obvious, but it should be in there. So now you have all your new navigation, you have the framework for all your pages, you have the content that's going to be migrated into each of those pages. If there are holes in your strategy, in your search terms, or in your user journey, you're going to create new content to fill those holes. And then at that point, you're going to get your designers and developers, and hopefully you're working with talented designers and developers, or you are going to find some talented designers and developers to work with. They're going to start creating the shell, migrating that content over. And while they're doing that, that's when you go in and you start optimizing those pages. You start marrying that content together, making it flow, make sure it's targeting your right keywords, focusing for the answers to the questions that users are asking. Lots of different ways to do that. Yoast is a free tool that works with most content management systems. And it just, gamifies it for you. It gives you red, yellow, or red, orange, and green indicators of what you need to change within your page to help optimize for the search engines. This is also when you look at accessibility and think about future-proofing your content. Looking at things like voice search, right? Voice search is fed from those people also ask questions that you see. If you can create questions on your page that answer the questions that users are asking, then you can start stealing some of those people also ask spots. And then you want to make sure that your analytics are set up to report to your stakeholders, right? Google Data Studio makes it very easy to generate these reports so that your stakeholders can see how your site is performing. You also want to include views that show how your site has improved, the performance improvement on your site since the redesign. Not only is this great for stakeholders, but this is great for you to see the value of your work and the efforts that you've put in. So the website optimization model and the data that you get from these different audits that you run will hopefully let you end up with a very functional, optimized site that provides your users the information that they're looking for and meets your strategic needs. So looking at your data has helped you avoid the fatal flaws of website redesign, and it's ended up with a site that is not only much more functional, but also allows you to report and directly see the impact of your work, and it'll make your stakeholders happy, and hopefully it will keep you out of the trees. I think we've got some time for questions. If anybody has questions, yes.
What was the tool that you can? I actually have three quick questions. What was the tool that is for doing the information architecture? You said there were some tools out there you can do.
Yep, lots of different tools that can do that. Screaming Frog is one that I love. That's the one that generates the force-directed diagrams and the tree diagrams. It does a lot of other, finds broken links on your site, does a lot of other things in its audit, shows you all the levels of depth of your site. It's a great tool for that.
And the second one is those worksheets, download worksheets, you send those to us?
You can go to getmyslides.info, the link's right there at the bottom, and you can download the presentation and all the templates. Yep.
Third quick question. So it's one thing to migrate your old to a new, and you're just redesigning it. How do you go about determining what new technology
Just
or
capture right up whatever's on my screen.
the last one that can improve the overall effectiveness of the website?
So I captured Lee's presentation where he did just the remix of Joe.
Hopefully the designers and developers you're working with are up to date on kind of the modern functionality of websites, new things you see on websites that you like. So you'll go out, you'll look at other industry sites or just other sites that'll give you inspiration of things that you like. Make sure whatever you choose works for your users, gives them some added benefit. It's not just a cool bell and whistle like our flashing new banner, our spinning logo. And then also consider how it affects the performance of your site. Because, there's a lot of, really lightweight new techniques that are coming out, different tools and effects that you can use to add different functionality and interactivity to your site, which are great. But if they start impacting your site performance and start impacting your search rankings, might not be worth it. So
I don't want to do it, then I don't want to be telling everybody that I'm going to be doing it.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, I said you might be.
Yes. Okay.
And they're like, what? And they're pulling the book up on Zoom. It's like, look at this. Oh my gosh. Josh was really excited.
Yeah. That could be great.
So, having two sites, the problem with that is now you have duplicate content. So search engines don't like that. And now you have to maintain two sites. Now there were AMP pages were a big thing, I don't know, a year or two ago, where it was focused mobile pages that were an alternate to regular, desktop delivered pages. So they're losing a little bit of their luster now. I like to try to, the technologies and the tools and the code that are available now make it pretty easy to make one website that kind of serves all your purposes. I'll always choose that option over having two different websites. Definitely look at your data and see how many of your users are mobile versus how many are desktop. I know most of our users, like 60% of our users are mobile. So we focus all of our efforts on making sure that our mobile content and mobile websites are as, perform as well as possible. So.
By sharing. Or you can
Any other
buy
questions?
it. So I bought one
All right.
tilt coin.
Thank
got
you
my
all for
third
coming.
tilt
Enjoy
coin,
the rest of the
and I
conference.
bought
And it was a pleasure.
tilt coin, which levels you up in his Discord